Hi, so the final chapter of Attack on Titan, chapter 139, dropped just a few days ago, and I have read it about 7 times over. And I just want to share my feelings and my thoughts and rant a little on why this chapter fell flat for me, on why I am disappointed with this chapter as the ending. Now, before I move on, I do want to say that Attack on Titan still remains one of my favorite stories of all time. This ending, however, does now affect the way with which I will re-engage with this media as the manga and also as the anime. Endings are important, and no, it doesn't ruin the whole series for me, but it's a shame that his weakest entry had to be his last one, because there's books, films that have chapters that are bad, series that have whole seasons that are bad, or a series that has an entire book that is bad. Perfection is not attainable even for the greatest writers. And I do think that Isayama is a masterful storyteller. I think he's a genius, and as a writer myself, I would be so lucky to be able to pen something as just apex as Attack on Titan has been. However, enough of that rambling. I just want to get straight into the issues that I had with this final chapter. I'll start with the chapter itself. As a whole, when I step back from it and just what I feel from it, what I got from it as a whole, is that this chapter feels as though it is ending a different story for me. The reason I say that is I think from about chapter 131, Attack on Titan's story has taken so many pivots in a different direction and motivation than what I thought the story was actually going in. The thing with storytelling is a writer can write a book, a million people can read it and see it and interpret it and experience it a million different ways. And that is why the fandom is split. Half of the fandom loves it, half of the fandom is extremely disappointed with it. I am in the camp of extremely disappointed with it. Not only does it feel like a different story, but I feel like all the big reveals, all the major reveals, all the major plot twists in this final chapter were forced on us. So they were so outlandish. They didn't make sense when you think of it in terms of the thread of the story from the beginning, in terms of foreshadowing, just in terms of even being there or ever being relevant. It delivers these massive revelations to us that is meant to shock us, and we're meant to be so just mind blown by it and go, oh my god, either I saw it coming, or oh my god, I can't believe that was really what was going on all along. But for me, it just fell flat, and I felt like I'm being forced to accept it because it is the last chapter. So I have no other option to accept it because it is that final chapter. I think that I can understand the themes and the story that this chapter was actually trying to close and trying to tell and trying to resolve, but the way in which they did this was so weak. It lacked conviction. I felt the characters themselves, I felt the story itself was given away to so many I don't know moments and just because moments with nothing really to explain. And some people might think, well, you were expecting too much, or you're reading too much into things, or you got lost in your headcanon or your theories. And I'd say, no, take all of that away. Because we all have our headcanon and the theories that we want and whatnot, but take all of that away. I still think for what it is, what it delivered, still feels quite limp. Like I feel like the characters are just reading the lines that they were told to read, as opposed to the writing being elevated, like we are so used to with Isayama's writing, that within a few lines, a few words can convey such deep emotion, such deep conviction, and we can emote with these characters. We can cry with them, we can cringe with them, we can laugh at them, we can grieve with them. But in this chapter, I really felt nothing for anyone, because the things I was supposed to feel were being forced on me, and weak connections were being made to try and explain why I should be feeling this way, or why this is the ending of the story. So as a whole, I think the chapter was ill constructed, and because it's so detached and so altered from what I believe was its original intent or the original direction, it doesn't quite meet up. If for those who love it, brilliant, you love it, and I wish that I could love it. And for those who don't, hey, we're in commiseration together. Now let me begin. Aaron, Aaron, it is disappointing. I, love or hate Aaron, he's been always such a compelling character, and I just think it's such a shame that the Aaron we get, the last time we get to interact with our homeboy Aaron Yeager, is in a way that is so flat, in a way that is so empty, so deflated, and some may argue that, well, that's exactly what it was meant to come across. Aaron is done, but I'm like, sorry, no, that is just, even when Aaron is done, it is epic. I mean, when it is epic when Hans gets eaten by Dina Fritz, and he's at the end with Mikasa. He's done, right? Like he understands, but he's screaming. It's still epic. It's not this resigned, like, oh, I don't really care what happens. It's not a patheticness. There is still that Attack Titan roar within Aaron, when he's begging Historia to eat him in the cave. It's still he's at what he thinks is his end, but he's still going out, like he's still at it. There's still a fight within him, and with this it was kind of like he's resigned, and he's just completely given up who he is, everything he's fought for. He's not going to get to see the end, because apparently that was always a part of the plan, but he's not even going to go out like Aaron Yeager. He's just going to go out as someone whose character has been ill-used. I felt everything that he delivered that I was meant to emote with, I didn't believe it. Aaron being in love with Mikasa, when in the story has this ever been subtly or overtly implied? And where were the threads throughout the story of this love that he had for her? Because we were well aware of the love that Mikasa had for him. And there were many opportunities at which we could have seen even an internal dialogue from Aaron, where he's starting to see her differently, and maybe in that internal dialogue betray a bit of his emotions. We could have seen that. He didn't ever have to outright say it until the moment in chapter 139, but it could have been implied so much more. But all we get is Aaron really just treating Mikasa the way he always has, which is, I love you, you're my homie, you're my family, I will always love you. I'll wrap that scarf around your neck, but you also irritate me. Stop hovering over me. You all you want to do is save me and protect me. And I didn't ever see an interaction where any romance was betrayed or shown. And I think that I'm being forced in this last chapter to just believe that Aaron has this incredible, deep love for Mikasa. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I think Aaron had a far much more chemistry with Historia. Shipping aside, they had their interactions had far more interactions with Historia that hinted at a potential of a romance. If there was going to be any couple that I would have put my money on, it would have been Aaron and Historia, because of the story that was built and being built with them. But it all changes for us here. Okay, so if Aaron does love Mikasa so much, why can't she know? Because he's dying now, so does it really matter if she knows? Wouldn't that actually be what she needs to move on and to live a happy, full life? But no, Aaron says he doesn't want her to love anyone, and he at least for 10 years. and then he tells Armin not to tell her. So Mikasa, who has suffered in this one-sided love, will never get to know that you love her, even though now that you're dead, why should it matter? And it should matter especially now that you're dead, and it should matter especially because she was the one that had to kill you and make a statement of her letting go of her being a slave to her love for you, and then it's repaid with nothing. We could have got a letter. Eren could have left a letter for Mikasa to cherish until her dying days, where he confessed his love, and as Mikasa read it, we would have wept with her. Like, I would have connected with that. That would have been something that would have moved me and convinced me that yeah, he did love her. Because with something like a letter, I can excuse that there was nothing really shown in the story. I can forgive that. But without anything like that, without any gesture post his death directly aimed towards Mikasa for her to cherish, I think no. I'm lost in that, and I can't be won over to believe that love was always there and that and was so genuine. And Eren, is Eren free? Does he have any agency, or is he just a puppet? And I think in this chapter it's so confused, and it contradicts itself, because we're made to believe that from the point that Eren kisses Historia's hand, that he sees the path, and it's from that point that he is no longer, that he becomes a slave to Ymir's will. And so therefore he sees past, present, and future, and has to kind of muddle his way through to get to the end point that he's given by Ymir. Only she really knows what it is, but he knows that Mikasa has to be endgame. So, okay. And we're made to believe that this entire time, the Eren that we see from that moment, who has so much determination, so much focus, after the time skip, he is leveled up. I felt like he got a super brain, because he went from just this brash youth that just wants to kill all the Titans and just rush in and kill our enemies, to someone who was thinking, to someone who was deliberate about still moving forward. I mean, when you look at the conversation he had with Reiner, the language in that, the genius of that storytelling, where it's Eren is Eren. He's still that attack titan. Like, he's saying, Reiner, I don't hold anything against you. We're the same. We've got to keep moving until our enemies are destroyed. That attack titan that was still fighting for freedom. And hey, by no means is Eren's path excusable, or the rumbling or anything, but he did do monstrous things, but that's what he always was. That I'll do whatever it takes to destroy Titan, get rid of them, and to save Mikasa, Armin, my friends, and Paradis. That was always him, and we loved that from the very beginning, even before he was a slave to Ymir. But now I'm meant to believe that was just kind of him not having any agency. That wasn't really him anymore, and he was just going along for the ride. Because when Armin asks him, why did you do the rumbling, he says, I don't know. So Eren was just a puppet this whole time, and this character, the change, the brilliant changes in him, the coldness, the reservedness, all of that, the calculation when he started the war in Mali, that was so calculated. The Jaegerists, everything, that is a thinking man. Eren didn't rely on Armin to do this. Armin wasn't by his side, his sidekick, telling him what to do. This was all Eren, because of obviously the influence of the Founding Titan and the Warhammer Titan and all that kind of stuff. But Eren was using his mind, and it seemed as though he had agency and he was driving this, but apparently he wasn't. He doesn't know why he did the rumbling. He didn't really have a good plan. He was just doing whatever he could to get to that end. And I just think, choose. Who is Eren? Like, who is Eren? Is he the one who always fights for freedom? Who will always fight for freedom and always fight for him to be free? Or was he a puppet, a slave to Ymir's destiny and will? And ultimately, it was really all for love, for his love for Mikasa. And like, what is it? Like, who is Eren? What are his motivations? Is he the same guy? It just felt like it wasn't decided. And if he's both, then I would have really appreciated throughout the story, and especially in this chapter, to give us a few panels where we can truly see the fight and the tension that Aaron has had with himself. That I fight for freedom. All I've ever wanted to be was free, but I am the biggest slave of them all because I'm a slave to this to Ymir's will. And I would have loved to see that. I would have loved to see it throughout the story. I would have loved to see more moments when Aaron was doing the rumbling. Show us that conflict. Show us that there's still Aaron inside there fighting. He's still driving it, that the rumbling was his choice because he realized that was really the best choice. And I'm sorry, say what you want. Zeke's plan was going to take too long. Euthanization took he took his people's freedom away, right? It took his people's freedom away. He didn't want that, and he thought, you know what? The only way that I can save my friends is to destroy the world so that we can be safe. He thought that through, and he was also thinking through of a way to end Titan, to completely end it and end that curse. Because when he gets into the paths and he sees Ymir and that whole thing happens and he holds on to her, I thought that was the moment where Ymir was like, this is what I was waiting for. Someone who is fighting for freedom as much as I am, who is hungry for freedom, someone who actually wants to end this curse and wants to take Titans out of the picture so that I'm free and they're free and the world is free. And when he says to her, you're not a god, you're not a demon, you are just a girl, you are free, I thought, brilliant, this makes sense thematically. I can't wait to see how this ends, because this is it. Aaron and Ymir, so many parallels between them. Yes, he is going to save her, and maybe they'll broker a deal where his deal will be or he set her free, or whatever it is, but that is what set Ymir free and allowed her to then say, I'm going to end all of this. But then in chapter 139, we're told that no, that meant absolutely nothing. Like, that was nothing. Aaron didn't have the power to set Ymir free, and Ymir didn't want to be set free of what I thought was a compulsion, a binding to Bad King Fritz's will. I thought she was bound there because because she was his slave, that even in death she was bound to him. I thought that she had no choice and she was longing to be set free, but she wasn't bound by any power or compulsion. It turns out that Ymir was in love with the man that burnt down her town, cut off her tongue, killed her parents, raped her when she was underage, forced her to have children, which when she died, he then made her children eat her, and perpetuated this whole the hell of Titans, where I meant to believe that she loved that man. And every time we ever saw any panel or anything about King Fritz and Ymir and her story, it was always that this man was vile and that she was his slave, and she was so sad and empty, and even her eyes were dead inside. And the reason that she eventually, she died, and she could have healed herself, but she didn't, because she hated him so much and she wanted to be free. That Ymir is actually in love for 2,000 years, has stayed in love and bound to this man, and is suffering for his love. But I say, who's suffering? Ymir isn't suffering. The people that are suffering are the humans, her descendants, that she is keeping in a perpetual loop of hell with monsters, and she's forcing this curse, and she's forcing wars, and she's forcing racism and all of that into a world, because she is by choice in love with a vile human being, if you could even call him a human being. And you know what? I thought, wow, this is some serious Stockholm syndrome. Let's hope they explore it. but nothing is explored. It's just stated that she loves him, and actually the way Eren states it is that yeah, she likes him, and I can't imagine to fathom the depths of her heart. It's just given to us. It's so massive. It changes so much of what we have read, of what we thought we were reading, of the themes, of what we thought the themes were, and it makes us go, what? Hang on. So she was suffering. She's in love. She didn't want to let go of this love that never did any good for her. So, but she was suffering and bound to it, and not by some kind of magic, but by her will. And what she actually needed was to see Mikasa let go of her love for Eren, and then she would be able to move on and let everybody be free and destroy Titans and destroy the paths and move on. That was it for 2,000 years. For 2,000 years she waited, not for Eren, who embodied freedom, but for Mikasa, who was suffering for the one-sided love she had for a man. And apparently in 2,000 years, she never saw that. It was so perfectly exemplified in Mikasa. I call bull caca on that. I think it was Mikasa because it had to be Mikasa for the plot, for the sake of the story being told. In this final chapter, it had to be Mikasa. And it had to be Mikasa because Mikasa killing Eren is a triumphant moment. It's epic, and there, we've got to find some way to link this massive action that Mikasa is doing to Ymir and to the ending of it all, because we don't want to end it properly. We don't really want to keep things making sense and going in its original direction. We've got to wrap this up. So because Mikasa is convenient, we'll link it to Ymir, and then it's kind of like kill three birds with one stone. So Mikasa killing Eren is what Ymir needs to see, and then she's able to let go, kill the Titans, and everything is good. The rumbling stops, everything's good. Hallucigenia as well is wrapped up in this, and the Hallucigenia just disappears. It disappears, and no more that. Yep. You know, just no and we're just meant to go, thank you. This makes all the sense in the world. Yes, this makes all the sense in the world. Greatest ending ever. I'm so lost with that. Mikasa and Ymir are not parallels. They shouldn't be parallels, because the nature of the love that they had is completely different. Mikasa's love is pure, and Ymir's love is twisted. It's broken. It's dysfunctional. And so I don't know why she would look at Mikasa's pure love for as an example. And also, funny story, like if she kind of can see all and understands all, she would also know that Eren does actually return these feelings, apparently. So how are those two and this love any parallel to hers? Because King Fritz hated her. The panel we're given in the final chapter is of her on the side looking after his baby, and he is surrounded by 4 concubines. And like, he doesn't return your love. He doesn't love you. He doesn't want you. You're nothing to him. You are merely a weapon to him, an animal and a weapon. And apparently, though, you would know, Ymir, that Eren actually does return her feelings, so it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Anyway, there's so many things that don't work there for me. Historia would have made more sense in terms of a parallel with Ymir and having where she had to let go of her father, who was manipulating her, who never loved her, who was using her. That rings more in line with King Fritz. Eren and King Fritz are not the same people. The relationships there are not the same, and the love there is not the same. So I think again, it was simply convenient, and such a shame that we didn't even get to see the story told from Ymir's point of view, right? We're just told all of this really important stuff about Ymir and this world and the ending of this whole story. We're just meant to be okay with it coming from Eren. And the way that Eren delivers it is, again, he's just reading lines and he doesn't understand her. And Armin's confused. So, of course, us as the fans are going to be hella confused, right? Of what is actually going on here. Like, what? So she was in love all the time, and what she was actually suffering was self-imposed, and it was the agony of loving someone that was vile. But Mikasa did it all, and Eren was insignificant, and yeah, would have been great. Give her some panels, because then I could have swallowed that pill. Then I could have swallowed that pill a little easier, because I would have been like, well, it's from the horse's mouth. Maybe convoluted, maybe a bit odd, and maybe left field, but at least we're getting it from Ymir. And also, when it comes to Ymir, so apparently she is the all-powerful one, and apparently she had the power to do this all along. She wasn't actually bound by something and wanting to free herself and everyone. She had the power all along. She didn't have to actually wait for Mikasa. She knew what she needed to do. She knew she needed to let go of Old Mate, but she couldn't. For 2,000 years, for whatever reason, she couldn't. So all this time, Ymir just hated on humanity, just hated on them, just didn't care. But we don't get any insight into that, because that's riveting, right? If we had got it into that, as twisted as crazy as that is, wasted opportunity to not have Ymir as some kind of big bad. Also, when Eren is in the pods, like, it would have been great to see her interact with him and explain to him the struggle she's having to let go of this love. Give me something so that I can at least feel, or at least feel something for this character, but it's nothing. And once she sees what she sees, she lets go. The paths disintegrate. The hallucinogen dies off screen. She disappears, and everything, and the paths, all of that happens off screen. So what? Like, all of this just kind of happens in the blink of an eye. It's gone, and I feel so sorry for the hallucinogenia, because I feel like, why did we even bring it into the story as much as it was brought in these last few chapters? It could have simply just remained a part of that lore that we would never really understand. This life being, this life parasite that has always been there for millions of years, and just wants to reproduce. All of that backstory that we're given, we didn't need it. We also didn't need to see that it couldn't be defeated by a colossal titan. Reiner couldn't defeat it. That it could live on without the host, and not just live on, but it could make titans without a founding titan. So, Eren didn't actually have to die. Mikasa could have just let go of her love, like Ymir could have just let go of the suffering of the love. Not the love, not that that Mikasa had to stop loving Eren, but Mikasa simply could have said, I'm not going to suffer and be a slave to this love anymore. I'm going to find a life for myself outside of this love. But that didn't happen. So Mikasa chops off his head, but that didn't actually need to happen, because once that, like, this, it's not as though Eren dying is what killed everything. Eren was a founding titan. The hallucinogenia gets separated from Eren in chapter 137, I think it is, and they're fighting it from that point. It can, without being attached to a founding titan, it is able to create titans on its own. So this thing is OP'd. So destroying it and its link to titans was not on Eren dying. It was on, apparently, Ymir doing it all. But it confuses me, because, like, it's the whole chicken and the egg thing. Who came first? Was it Ymir or the hallucinogenia? I thought that hallucinogenia was the beginning of this all. It latched onto Ymir, and that started the whole race of the Titans. But that this hallucinogenia was the magic that allowed the Titans to continue in this world. Now, Ymir is the one who kept rebuilding them, but even on its own, this thing could have been turning people into Titans. Because we see at the end, it's able to do that. I thought that this was what gave Ymir the power to create the paths, that the paths only existed because she was still connected somehow to the power of this hallucinogenia. But apparently it turns out that no, this hallucinogenia is actually degrade compared to the god tier Ymir, and that she is actually the one that has the power. Because as soon as she decides to let go, the hallucigenia also decides to not be there. Now, and we know that it's not there and that it's dead or that it's whatever, because gone. The Titans are gone. They revert back. So that magic, that power, that force reverts back. Everyone that was turned into a Titan is now a human. Even those who were turned into a Titan yonks ago, like Connie's mum, they're now human. The paths are gone. So that purgatory place, and where all the Eldians gone, that's gone. So all of that power is gone. So what was the hallucigenia? It really did not have to be in the story. It really did not have to ever really appear as anything in the story. It didn't have to be tied to anything. We could have just said it gave Ymir the power for Titans, and then she perpetuated that. And it was done. That's it. It had nothing to do with the story. I believe it hardcore did, and the story changed. And that is why we get this half-assed connection. So half-assed that they couldn't even commit to giving us panels to show it happening. It had to happen off screen, because that's really it's insignificant. So insignificant we didn't need to see it happen. When the paths disintegrate, Levi still gets to see his homies. I don't know how that, with what magic. Was it like a residue magic? Did Ymir give him one last gift? Did she just sprinkle a bit of magic just for Levi to see just his scouts, just his comrades? Like, I thought once that's gone, all magic, all of that is gone. Another thing that I just think is so ridiculous is, if Ymir loved this king so much, right, and he died, and she created the paths to stay connected. When he died, he would have gone to the paths. Why wasn't that enough for her? Why wouldn't she just be like, well, he's here with me now forever, so that's it? And she could have just gone on and been happy with her mans. But instead, she keeps creating Titans, and she keeps suffering and yearning for this love. I mean, yeah. It's a lot. I honestly would have loved it more, and everybody would have loved it more, right? To say that she was actually compelled. She may have loved him. I'm fine with that. She may have loved him because of Stockholm Syndrome. There's a lot of people who love people that they shouldn't in dysfunctional, toxic relationships. I can swallow that. But that being the only thing that bound her for 2,000 years, rubbish. It should have been that she was actually compelled by some kind of magic, either to the hallucigenia or King Fritz, whatever it is, and she actually needed freedom, which only Eren could give her, but that she also was able to let go of her the suffering of her love through Mikasa, but that Mikasa wouldn't be the thing that set everything into motion for the end game, but that it would have been Eren, because that makes so much more sense. I know I'm repeating that point, but it makes so much more sense. I think Historia was so hard done by. I think she really wasn't relevant at all to the story. From chapter 123, you could have taken her out of the story, and instead of making her pregnant to an insignificant, D-grade, nameless character, you could have just had her being a queen. And instead of having to dedicate really any pages to her, you could have just had a line every now and then. She's breaking peace with this nation. She's gone to do negotiations with this nation. Because she's a queen, she's got responsibilities. That was a character that I didn't need to really have to be involved, but you did involve her. And this is my conspiracy theory, and I will die on this hill. The story that was being told up until at least chapter 132 was absolutely retconned and changed for whatever reason. Because when I look at chapter 131, and Eren goes to Historia to tell him about his plan, didn't have to. There's no, that whole panel, that whole memory could be taken out of the story, their whole conversation, and the story would have progressed exactly as it did. That panel, that memory had nothing. It didn't affect the story or the narrative in any way. It actually regressed it, because when you look at that panel and then you look at how it ends, it actually makes it really hard to swallow the end. because for one, why did Aaron go to tell her? He didn't have to. She didn't have to know. And he doesn't just tell her, but he says, keep my secret. Like there was more to it, that there was, and that her keeping his secret was important to the end game, was important to him being able to do what he needed to do. Like, why tell her? If it had to be a secret, why even tell her? Because she's the queen and she's a bleeding heart. And of all of the characters, even more so than Armin, his story would have been like, I don't like this. I can't let you do this. And she does express that in that chapter and says, I can't let you do this. But then she does. We're never shown how she actually came to a place of deciding to hold the secret and be okay and trust Aaron's plan, because that's effectively what she did. She trusted him. She didn't try. She could have stopped him. She could have imprisoned him. She could have had it that they take the attack Titan away from him, or the founding Titan away from him. There were so many things that Historia could have done, but she didn't. We're not given any insight into that. Did Aaron just tell her because he wanted to get it off his chest and because he couldn't tell Armin and Mikasa? Well, if that was the case, then why wasn't it just presented that way? It didn't have to be a big deal. It could have just been like, hey, I'm telling you because I need somebody else to know. And it would make more sense to me if Aaron actually divulged everything to Historia. And by everything, I mean his true plan. The fact that really why I'm doing all of this. Not just I've decided to just be a genocidal maniac, but actually what he ended up revealing to Armin, he could have revealed to Historia there, and maybe that is why the conversation wasn't fully played out, and it would actually have a payoff in the final chapter, but it has no such payoff. There is no such thing going on. It's pointless. And her asking him what he thinks about her having a baby is pointless, because if all it was that she was in love with a man and she wanted to have a baby, they could have had that conversation. She simply could have said, hey Aaron, I love Farmer-kun, we go way back and we're having a baby. That's it. No mystery. No baby shrouded in mystery. No father shrouded in mystery. We didn't have to have the military police talking about them not being iffy about this story of how she actually got pregnant. We didn't need any of that. It was a waste of a time red herring that didn't actually serve the plot. It wasted a lot of energy. But I think when it was written, it wasn't written as a red herring. I think there was a lot more intention and meaning there. And the biggest point for me believing this is when Aaron first gets there, he tells her that the military police are coming, they're moving ahead with the plan, and he asks her this really curious question. We gives her this option, really. We run or we fight. Why would Aaron do that? If Aaron was actually really just a slave to this thing and really didn't know what he was doing and really didn't even know why he chose the rumbling, he just kind of chose it and couldn't really help it, but had to manipulate events so that his Dino Fritz ate his mom, traumatizing, but all of this, but he came to Historia and was giving her an option to run or fight. That's a massive, massive, massive deal. Because what Aaron was effectively saying is that if Historia chose to run, that he was willing to leave everything, put everything on pause, really, leave everything behind and run with her. And it wasn't him and Mikasa and Armin and everybody running, because they were already on that side of Historia is going to become the Beast Titan. This was Aaron going, I'm protecting you. I'm fiercely protective over you. You mean more to me than anyone else. Yes, I love Mikasa and Armin, but you mean so much to me that I'm willing to run away with you and hide you, keep you safe until Zeke's dead, because that's how long he would have had to run with her. And he didn't say you will have to run. He said we run, because you know what? They're the enemies of humanity. they are allies. They have an intimacy, and that none of the other with each other that they don't with any other characters. This was built up. This was shown to us. This was real. This was building. And he comes at this point, but I'm supposed to believe that he just didn't have any agency, and the things he did, he just kind of did. He didn't even know why he did the rumbling, but he was able to ask Historia such a pivotal question: we run or we hide? She says we don't run. Sorry, we run or we fight. She says we don't run and we don't fight. And she's basically like a boss says, I will do it. I'll do what I need to do. Whatever is the safest way for me to keep this island safe and our loved ones safe, I'll do that. And if I have to become the Beast Titan, no problemos. But that is all for nothing. I'm meant to actually forget that conversation happened. And just go, yeah, he meant we run for one day. We just run today. But then I'm pulled back into Ymir's will, and I have no power or agency, and I just kind of, you've lost me there. A few things. Ryan, I hated that the last time that we interacted with Rhino was that he was sniffing Historia's letter like he was sniffing her panties. It just doesn't. This man wanted to die. He wanted to die. He was done. I really doubt that Rhino would be sitting there making joke time and sniffing letters of Historia after everything is said and done. I really don't see that Rhino would be doing that, and I feel like, again, why would you do that to his character? Why would you do that? Why would you give us that? I think Armin was also done badly. Like, Armin has not used his brain cells for quite a while, and he comes in and he's like, yes, I was the one that ended it all. You weren't. Mikasa wasn't the hero. You weren't the hero. Ymir was. But Armin says, "Oh, guys, I'll be the helos for the world and whatnot." He didn't use his brain. Armin was just sidelined. Every great character was just sidelined. Mikasa has been sidelined for such a long time that she's been one-track minded, just like Jon Snow. She's my queen. Mikasa has been the echo of that with Eren's her king. She's just been this one-trick pony, and I thought finally, chapter 138, she's broken free. She's gonna build a life of her own apart from Eren. She'll love him till she dies, but she'll move on from that laboring and that suffering. But she doesn't, because it's regressed so dismally in chapter 139, because after the time skip, so not, a year after even, but 3 years after Eren's death, she doesn't have any life. Everybody else in the time skip is shown with their life up and up. They're living. They're kikiing. They're having a good time. But Mikasa, who was meant to be apparently now the main character of the story, Mikasa, who was meant to be the real savior, the one that all of this hung on, did this triumphant thing, was the one that could show Ymir how to let go and move on, but she hasn't done that. She is sitting by the tree, still pining for Eren, because she doesn't know that he ever loved her, because he didn't want her to know. So did he really love her? Anyway, miss me with that. She's sitting by the tree, and I would have loved to have seen her with friends, with people, moving on, laughing. They could have shown her at Historia's baby's party, laughing, happy, twinkle in her eye, and then she could have walked to the grave, left a flower, and said, I'll always love you, or I'll always remember you. But it could have been from a triumphant place of, I'm living, I'm happy, I'm full, I have a life now. She doesn't. She is still pining. So she literally just swaps places with Ymir. Like, she lets Ymir go, but she's still stuck. Like, she's gonna still be stuck to the slave of, she's still gonna be a slave to the love of this man that apparently loved you so much that he couldn't even let you know post his death via a letter, or by letting his best friend tell you that he loved you. So forever you're going to think he didn't love me, apart from that little thing that you got in his mind of the cabin. I'm confused. Someone please let me know. Eren isn't supposed to have the power to influence Ackerman minds. And, they kind of make us think that, will make us believe that, he gave her that memory. Obviously, they obviously talked. He gave her that memory in the woods to show her that this is the life that they would have lived or could have lived or whatever. And then he made her forget it. And her headaches were because he was making her forget it. So this whole time, every time Mikasa had a headache, was it because of the Ackerman bond was trying to be like fucked with? Was that what across all time, this was happening, and it was just reverberating across time. So when she was a little girl and as she was growing up, that this was always Eren trying to make her forget. And I just feel like can somebody please clarify in the comments what is this actual Ackerman, what is this actual Ackerman power? Because I thought it was that they couldn't even be influenced. So you're telling me that the Ackermans are the only ones that didn't have their memories wiped out because their minds couldn't even be effed with to begin with. But I'm supposed to believe that Eren somehow now has the power to do that, to mess with her mind, not just give her an illusion, a fantasy, a sub-life thing that they would have lived. Not just give her that, but also then make her forget it for the bulk of the fight. And then she remembers it, and then that's... I thought he couldn't do it, so pick and choose what's actually going on here. Like, it's deep to me. Like, wow, I didn't realize that Eren could. And then I think, did Ymir give her that? Did Ymir put that thing in her head? But it had nothing to do with Ymir, really, because the panels make it seem as though when she says, this can't be the last thing I remember of Eren, this can't be my last memory, we then see that. So that was actually her last memory with Eren. But why does he have the power to do that now? All of a sudden now, without any explanation, this is he's able to actually penetrate an Ackerman mind. Okay, I guess because it's the last chapter, I just have to believe it, right? I just have to accept that is what it is. Next, I think that's everything. Farmakun, why are you there? Like, I feel sorry for you. Like, you're that extra that's like was promised more lines and promised the biggest part for like 12 seasons, but it never happened. You were lied to, because I don't understand why you were there. Also, you should have just kept that last panel out. I mean, this chapter was so ill constructed that it still could have been the last panel as a little goodbye to Eren, but instead we end with Mikasa yelling at Eren, who's now apparently a bird, saying, thank you for wrapping the scarf around me. Why did you even show us the panel of Grisha saying Eren is free? Like, I felt nothing for that. I was actually irritated that was in there. It was like shoehorned in there because it goes so quickly. So it's like, what does it mean? Like, Eren was never free. Like, choose. Is Eren free or is he not? And if he was both, execute that tension better than you did. Yeah, like what happens to all the colossal titans that were turned back to humans when Ymir decided to let go and everything reverted? Like, where are they? There was like 100 million of them, wasn't there, in the wars? Hundreds of millions of colossal titans all around the world. A lot of them in oceans, because the world is most ocean. So do they just drown and die? Like, we're not told what happens. We don't know. The ones that were on land, do they revert to people? And they're all dead, because I can guarantee you a bunch of colossal titans that have just destroyed 80% of the world end up on my shore as a human. I'm killing them, and I'm not asking them, are you a titan or a man? I'm killing you because I don't know that the curse of the titans is gone. I'm killing you. So I just don't know what we're meant to. Where do they go? Apparently they are the one. Only they die. They don't have a right to be returned to humans and live again. They die. Yes, okay, killing 100% of the world is a no-no, but killing 80% of the world deserves a round of applause and everybody thinking you're such a sacrificial hero. It was just 20%. If he had gone full Rumble, we can't have that. We can't have that. But 80% Rumble, you're such a good man. You are such a kind man, Aaron. I just think it's so ridiculous that Armin, of all people, thanks Aaron for his great sacrifice. That there is no conflict. That there is nothing in him in going, this was too much. You know, he actually thanks him. He's like, thanks. We get to live because you went 80% Rumble. Thank you. 80% of the world. And also, we're also meant to believe that the world, or at least Mali and a few of the, allied alliance or nations, that they've all gone, you know what? 80% is not bad. Aaron was actually quite generous. And we're not going to want to nuke Paradise. And I get it, maybe the ones that on that island that witnessed it all happen, but you cannot tell me that the rest of the world is going to sit around too long and wait and be like, oh my gosh, like, we're just going to let Paradise Island remain. And we're going to kumbaya and actually listen to anything they have to say. Because even though the Titan powers is gone, one of your kind destroyed 80% of the world. That kind of evil, no matter what good end it brought about, the Titans are gone and whatnot, that kind of evil cannot be allowed to just be kumbaya'd away. People are nuking that island. They're not caring because they're saying, oh, so it's okay for you to destroy 80% of a world that really didn't have an issue with you. And I just find it funny because when Paradise was, controlled by the Titans in the wall, the allied nations didn't like you. They all hated you when you were being controlled and there was no war and you had no technology, no means to actually do anything to hurt them. They didn't come together. When you were no real threat whatsoever, they didn't come to kumbaya and go, you know what, let's just let them live. Let's you know what, guys, they're just people like us. But now that you've destroyed 80% of the world, you think they're just going to sit there? I really don't know that Aaron bought them all that as much time as he thinks. And I get it. War happened before the Titans. War will happen after them. War is a thing of life. But I just find it weird, this idea of the nations coming together. I just wish they'd left all of that out of there and just been like, it's not over. But Aaron, at least we're in a better place than we've ever been. It's not over, but we're in a better place than we've ever been. Don't get into all of this now, but all the nations are coming together, and that is not realistic. Not realistic at all. What else? Yeah. I mean, I've been rambling now for 52 minutes, so it's going to be a long video. For all of those who have stayed tuned, I thank you for listening. I will be posting more, and I will actually, in a few weeks, sit down and actually write an essay, write a well thought out, tempered essay on the key points, and just actually deliver a more coherent video. But for now, this is just how I'm feeling and my initial responses. Thanks for listening.